Stop scrolling for a second. I mean it, because what I'm about to tell you might be the single most important 5 minutes you spend on your health this year. And it starts with a sentence I want you to really sit with. Your legs are not getting weaker because you're getting older. Your legs are getting weaker because nobody ever told you what to feed them. Read that again if you need to, because there's a world of difference between those two ideas. One is an excuse. The other is something you can actually fix starting today. I'm Dr. William, and what I'm handing you in the next few minutes is exactly that fix. 6 specific foods ranked from genuinely helpful all the way up to what I'd call transformational that can rebuild leg strength, restore muscle tissue, and give you back the kind of stability and confidence a lot of people assume is simply gone for good once they hit a certain age. It isn't. Let me show you why. Before I get into the list, I want to share a number that stopped me cold the first time I read it. A landmark study out of the Journal of the American Geriatric Society tracked adults over 65 and found that those with significant lower body muscle weakness carried a 72% higher risk of losing their mobility within 5 years, along with a sharp rise in fall-related hospital visits, nursing home admissions, and early death. 72%. That's not a rounding error. That's nearly 3 out of every 4 people who could have changed their trajectory earlier if only somebody had explained what we now understand about nutrition, muscle biology, and the aging body. And here's a preview. The food sitting at number 1 on this list is almost certainly something already in your kitchen right now. Something you may have even been told for years to avoid, and something researchers at a major medical school now consider one of the most powerful muscle protective compounds we know of for anyone past 60. I'm saving that one for the very end, because once you hear the science behind it, you will never look at your grocery list the same way again. Before we start counting down, I want to ask you something a little more personal. Down in the comments, tell me how old you are, and be honest with me. Have your legs been feeling weaker, heavier, less steady than they used to? Maybe the stairs feel like more of a project lately. Maybe you've had a close call, a stumble that scared you more than it should have. Maybe just standing up from a chair takes a little grunt now that it never used to. I read every comment on this channel, every one, and your story might be exactly what convinces someone else watching to finally make a change. Take 30 seconds. Tell me where you're at. Now, let's get into it. We're counting down from 6 to 1, from helpful all the way to life-changing. Sitting at number 6, and this one throws people every single time I say it. Eggs. I know you've heard the warnings your whole life. They spike your cholesterol. They're hard on your heart. Put the carton down and back away slowly. I'm going to tell you, with the full weight of where the science actually stands today, that advice, especially for anyone over 60, was one of the most damaging pieces of nutrition guidance ever handed to the public. Here's what eggs actually do for aging legs. They're one of the most complete natural sources of leucine on the planet. Leucine is an amino acid, and if that word means nothing to you, just picture it as the key that starts the engine of muscle protein synthesis, the process your body uses to actually build and repair muscle tissue. Past the age of 65, your body develops something researchers call anabolic resistance, meaning your muscles get stubborn. They stop responding as efficiently to protein signals and need a louder trigger to get the same response. Leucine is that trigger. 2 large whole eggs deliver roughly 1.6 grams of it, and research out of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign found that's enough to meaningfully kickstart muscle protein synthesis even in older adults dealing with significant anabolic resistance. But the part that makes eggs truly special goes beyond leucine. That yolk everyone spent decades throwing away contains choline, vitamin D, and a compound called phosphatidylcholine that helps hold together the membranes of your muscle cells. Those membranes get more fragile with age, less able to hold on to the nutrients your muscles need to contract and recover properly. The yolk works almost like a protective coating for those cells. Tossing it in the trash is a little like buying a car and leaving the engine back at the dealership. I had a patient, Margaret, 74, from Sarasota, who came to see me after her second fall in 6 months. She'd grown genuinely afraid of her own staircase. She'd been on a low fat diet for over a decade, avoiding eggs entirely on the advice of a doctor from years earlier. We added 3 whole eggs to her mornings. 8 weeks later, she told me she'd walked up her stairs without touching the railing for the first time in 2 years. That's not luck. That's leucine, choline, and vitamin D doing precisely what the research says they should do. For the best results, eat 2 to 3 whole eggs in the morning, ideally alongside a bit of healthy fat like olive oil or avocado, which helps your body absorb the fat soluble vitamins in the yolk. And go easy on the heat. Gentle cooking in a dry pan protects the integrity of the proteins far better than blasting them on high. Number 5, wild caught salmon. If your legs feel heavy, if they cramp in the middle of the night, if they ache the moment you swing them out of bed in the morning, there's a good chance chronic inflammation is quietly working against your muscle tissue while you sleep. Wild caught salmon is one of the most potent anti inflammatory foods nature has to offer. The active players here are EPA and DHA, two omega 3 fatty acids, and let me translate what those letters actually mean for an aging body. Picture inflammation inside your muscle tissue like a slow burning forest fire, small at first, smoldering constantly at a low level, and over years it scorches everything nearby: the muscle fibers, the connective tissue, even the nerve pathways carrying signals from your brain down to your legs. EPA and DHA act like the water bombing planes flying over that fire. They don't just calm it down, they chemically neutralize the specific inflammatory compounds, prostaglandins, and cytokines that your body starts producing in greater quantities after 60. A study out of the University of Aberdeen followed 87 adults over 65 for 18 weeks. The group eating roughly 3 servings of wild salmon a week saw a 22% jump in their rate of muscle protein synthesis compared to those who didn't. 22% from a fish, not a supplement. Salmon has a second gift for aging legs that almost nobody mentions. It's one of the very few food sources of vitamin D3, the active form your skin loses much of its ability to produce naturally after 70. Research in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology found that vitamin D deficiency, which affects an estimated 77% of adults over 65, is directly tied to muscle weakness, poor balance, and a higher risk of sarcopenia, the medical term for age-related muscle loss. A single 6-ounce serving of wild sockeye salmon delivers up to 988 international units of D3. The recommended daily minimum for adults over 70 is 800. You get there in one meal. Aim for salmon 2 to 3 times a week and make sure it's wild caught. Farm salmon carries a very different omega 3 to omega 6 ratio and simply doesn't deliver the same anti-inflammatory punch. Pair it with a handful of dark leafy greens, which brings us conveniently to our next food. Number 4, spinach and dark leafy greens. And this one has an almost legendary reputation among longevity researchers. Think about every genuinely mobile, older person you've ever known. The one who stood up from a chair without pushing off the armrests, who walked without shuffling their feet. I'd bet real money that dark leafy greens showed up on their plate regularly. Here's the biology behind why. Past age 75, your body loses roughly 35% of its ability to recycle nitric oxide, a molecule that essentially directs blood flow through your legs like a traffic controller. When nitric oxide levels fall, the tiny blood vessels feeding your quadriceps, hamstrings, and calves start to congest. Nutrients struggle to get in, waste struggles to get out, and the result is muscle that fatigues faster, recovers slower, and shrinks a little more each year. Spinach, kale, Swiss chard, and arugula are packed with dietary nitrates, which your body converts back into nitric oxide through a process involving bacteria in your saliva. You're essentially using food to route around what aging has taken away. A striking study from the Karolinska Institute in Sweden found that nitrate intake equivalent to about 200 grams of spinach improved skeletal muscle efficiency in older adults by 19%. The muscle itself didn't get bigger. It simply got better at using the oxygen and nutrients already showing up at its door, like upgrading the fuel injection on an old engine. The engine stays the same size, but it runs cleaner and lasts longer. Spinach is also loaded with magnesium, a mineral roughly 68% of Americans over 60 are chronically short on. Magnesium powers more than 300 separate enzymatic reactions in your body, and one of the most important is muscle relaxation. That nighttime cramp in your calf, the foot that curls up involuntarily, that's very often your body signaling a magnesium shortage. A single cup of cooked spinach delivers 157 milligrams, about 37% of what you need in a day. I had a patient named Robert, 71, a retired postal worker from Cincinnati, who told me his legs felt like they were filled with concrete every single morning. He'd been taking magnesium supplements for years with barely any change. We shifted strategy, 2 cups of sauteed spinach daily with olive oil and garlic. 6 weeks in, he told me the concrete feeling was gone, and he'd started walking his old mail route again just for the joy of it. That olive oil isn't just for flavor either. It dramatically boosts your absorption of the fat-soluble compounds in the greens, so always cook them in a quality fat. Right here, between number 4 and number 3, I want to pause and ask you for something. If any of this has already opened your eyes to something you didn't know 5 minutes ago, tap that like button right now. It genuinely helps this reach more people who need to hear it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is the moment to do it, because every week I bring you grounded, practical health information built specifically for people who want to stay strong and independent on their own terms. It takes 1 second, and it might be one of the better health decisions you make today. All right, let's keep moving. Number 3, and we're in elite territory now, Greek yogurt. Most people file yogurt away as a light snack, something you eat when you're being good. What most people don't realize is that full-fat Greek yogurt is one of the most anabolically powerful foods available to an aging body, and it's wildly underused as a muscle-building tool in seniors. Here's why it earns its spot. 1 cup of plain, full-fat Greek yogurt delivers roughly 17 to 20 grams of high-quality protein, and it carries a specific amino acid profile, leucine again, along with isoleucine and valine, the 3 branched-chain amino acids that get absorbed directly into muscle tissue with remarkable efficiency. Unlike a lot of plant proteins, which are often incomplete on their own and need to be paired with other foods, the protein in Greek yogurt is what scientists call highly bioavailable. It doesn't take a scenic route. It goes straight to where your muscles need it. But here's what really sets Greek yogurt apart for older adults. It contains live probiotic cultures, particularly lactobacillus, which influence something researchers now call the gut-muscle axis, a fairly new area of study with genuinely striking findings. Research out of UC Davis found that a healthier gut microbiome in older adults correlated directly with greater lean muscle mass, stronger legs, and faster recovery after physical activity. It turns out your gut isn't just digesting your food, it's regulating how much of it your muscles actually get to use. After 65, the gut microbiome typically becomes less diverse and less efficient at pulling nutrients out of what you eat. Probiotic-rich foods like Greek yogurt help rebuild that diversity, a bit like restocking a library that's slowly been losing its books. The fuller the shelves, the easier it is for your body to find exactly what it needs. For the best results, eat your Greek yogurt within 30 to 45 minutes of any physical activity. Even a short walk counts, since that window is when your muscles are most receptive to protein signals. Stir in a tablespoon of ground flaxseed for extra omega-3s, or a drizzle of raw honey, which contains enzymes that help your probiotics survive the trip through your digestive tract. Always reach for plain, full-fat versions. The low-fat ones usually swap that fat out for added sugar, which just feeds the inflammation we're trying to put out. Number 2, and I promised you early on that one of these would genuinely surprise you. Here it is, beets. I can already picture some of you smiling. and others rolling your eyes. And I understand both reactions because beets aren't exactly the first thing that comes to mind when you picture building stronger legs. But the research connecting beets to physical performance in older adults is compelling enough that major sports medicine institutions have folded beet-derived compounds into their recovery protocols. This isn't folk wisdom. This is frontier science applied to the aging body. The mechanism circles back to those dietary nitrates we talked about with spinach, except beets carry them at concentrations roughly 3 to 4 times higher per gram than any leafy green. One medium beet holds about 300 milligrams of dietary nitrates, and when those nitrates reach the oxygen-starved environment of working muscle, they convert into nitric oxide with remarkable efficiency, triggering what researchers call a vasodilatory cascade, a wave of blood vessels opening up and flooding your legs with oxygen and nutrients in a way aging vascular tissue simply can't manage on its own. A study out of Wake Forest University found that older adults who drank the nitrate equivalent of 2 medium beets before moderate exercise showed a 38% increase in blood flow to the brain regions responsible for motor control. Let that sit for a second. Beets didn't just help what was happening down in the legs, they improved the brain's ability to actually control those legs. For anyone worried about falls, coordination, or the fading communication between nerve and muscle that comes with age, that's a genuinely big deal. Beets are also rich in betaine, a compound that lowers homocysteine levels in the blood. Elevated homocysteine, which affects an estimated 47% of adults over 60, is linked to faster muscle loss, vascular damage, and impaired mitochondrial function. And your mitochondria are essentially the power generators inside every muscle cell. Damage those, and your muscles start running like a car on a dying battery. Betaine helps clean up the chemistry, protecting those generators. I had a patient, Elena, 68, from Portland, who came to me after 3 separate doctors told her that her leg weakness and constant fatigue were simply part of getting older. She was walking with a cane at 68. We added 2 roasted beets to her lunch 4 days a week, along with a short daily walk. 12 weeks later, she walked back into my office without that cane. She'd started gardening again. She cried telling me about it, and I'll admit, so did I a little. Roast your beets at 400 degrees for 45 to 60 minutes to concentrate the nitrates without cooking them away. Or blend raw beets into a smoothie with a splash of citrus juice. The vitamin C dramatically improves how efficiently your body converts those nitrates. Avoid boiling beets for long stretches, since the water-soluble nitrates leach right out into the water. Pair beets with any lean protein and you've got one of the most powerful pre-activity meals available to an aging body. And now, number 1, the food I teased at the very start of this video, the one researchers at a major medical school now regard as one of the most powerful muscle protective compounds available to anyone over 60, and the one that's been unfairly avoided and pushed off the plates of millions of seniors thanks to outdated advice. Number 1 is extra virgin olive oil. I know a lot of you were expecting a protein source, some kind of exotic superfood powder. Stick with me, because what I'm about to explain about olive oil and the aging muscular system is genuinely going to change how you think about fat, inflammation, and what actually builds a strong body. Let's start with what sets extra virgin olive oil apart from every other fat on your shelf. It contains a compound called oleocanthal, a natural plant polyphenol that behaves inside your body almost identically to ibuprofen. Same basic mechanism, it blocks the same inflammatory enzymes COX-1 and COX-2 that prescription anti-inflammatory drugs target, minus the gastric bleeding, kidney strain, and cardiovascular risk that come with long-term NSAID use. For seniors who so often end up medicated with anti-inflammatories for joint and muscle pain, that distinction genuinely matters. But the muscle-specific benefits go well beyond fighting inflammation. A landmark study out of the University of Athens, published in the journal Clinical Nutrition, followed 840 adults over 65 for 3 years. Those consuming at least 4 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil daily showed a 37% lower rate of sarcopenia compared to those who rarely touched it. Sarcopenia, again, is that progressive, involuntary loss of muscle mass and strength that starts creeping in around 40 and accelerates sharply after 60. And here, it dropped 37% from olive oil alone. Here's the mechanism researchers find most compelling. The polyphenols in extra virgin olive oil, and there are more than 30 distinct ones, appear to directly activate what's called the mTOR pathway inside muscle cells, essentially the master switch controlling muscle protein synthesis. It's the same switch leucine flips, the same switch resistance exercise flips, the same switch anabolic hormones flip. Olive oil polyphenols seem able to flip that switch on their own, without exercise, without a hormone surge, working at the cellular level regardless of what else is happening in your day. Past 70, your body loses roughly 40% of its sensitivity to that mTOR signal, which means muscles get harder to build, not just because of less protein or less movement, but because the biological machinery responsible for building them is running underpowered. Extra virgin olive oil appears to be one of the very few everyday foods capable of partially restoring that sensitivity, giving aging muscle a second way in, one that doesn't depend on the gym or the dinner plate alone, but works quietly in the background every time you reach for the bottle. So here's what I want you to walk away with. None of these 6 foods require a prescription, a supplement aisle, or a complicated plan. Eggs for the leucine your muscles are begging for. Wild salmon to put out the slow fire of inflammation. Spinach to open the tiny vessels feeding your legs. Greek yogurt to feed both your muscle and the gut that decides how much of it you actually get to use. Beets to flood your legs and your brain with the blood flow aging quietly takes away. And extra virgin olive oil sitting quietly in your pantry the whole time, doing more for your muscles than most people ever imagine a bottle of oil could do. Your legs were never simply doomed to weaken with age. Nobody ever told you what to feed them, and now you know. If this video gave you even one thing you're going to act on today, that's exactly why I do this. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and tell me down in the comments which of these 6 foods you're adding to your plate first. And if you know someone who's been told their weak legs are just a normal part of getting older, send them this video. It might be the exact thing that gets them moving again. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I'll see you in the next one.